Super Rugby, Aotearoa and AU for this Saturday. Got the Force jersey and the Force magnet on display. New Crusaders jersey, magnet. I still need to get the Crusaders jersey with that logo on it. Anyway, pretty big games on this weekend, people. Both of these games are pretty tasty for their own reasons. The traditional Canterbury-Auckland, although I know these are regions, but you know what I mean. The traditional Canterbury-Auckland rivalry has been a big one. It's been pretty flat in recent years with the Blues kind of sucking and the Crusaders just being an all-dominant force. So that's been kind of reignited for this weekend. And Waratahs Force, I feel like the Waratahs maybe feel a bit of the brunt of they're the Sydney team, which is kind of where, like, North Sydney seems to be a place that a lot of people give grief in terms of the way Aussie rugby is being run. So the Force, when they got that famous last victory over the Tars all those years ago, it seemed somehow to be kind of a particular middle finger pointed towards Aussie rugby. So, yeah, it's a rekindling of that one as well. Anyway, I've been waffling on. The first game, the Crusaders against the Blues. Now, this game's sold out. Sold out. That's a good thing, because the initial Crusaders game seemed to have a pretty average crowd, but the fact that both these teams are unbeaten, 3 from 3. The Crusaders are on the log slightly higher than the Blues because of the bonus points they've been picking up. But it's 2 unbeaten teams. It's Beauden Barrett come to town. It's Dan Carter as the water boy because he's not in the squad this week. And yeah, there's lots of good reasons for these two teams to want to beat each other, and a lot of good reasons for the fans to want to get out there and see this game. So I'm a Blues fan. I'm wearing a Crusaders jersey. I'm hoping I'll be wearing the Blues jersey for the review. Not holding my breath. Crossing my fingers for sure. But, this has to be the game of the week. Come on, man. The Crusaders lineup, they're kind of continuing with the rotation thing. Like, Severis was rotated out, and now he's back in from the bench. George Bridge is back from outside the squad. He had a rest, and now he's back. Interestingly, because most of the squad is the same, Will Jordan, who has been on absolute fire all Super Rugby Aotearoa season, he is on the bench. I don't know how to feel about that as a Blues fan. Like, happy that kind of strike weapon who's been in such a rich vein of form is on the bench, or worried that he's going to come on and do some devastating stuff against some tired Blues runners towards the end of the game. But yeah, he's on the bench. Reese is starting. Havili's still at fullback. Bryn Hall starts instead of Drummond. And yeah, for the most part, it seems to be pretty much the same squad. There's still no Cullen Grace because he's injured. Moody, Taylor, Alatoa, Whitelock, Dunshay. It's the same folks as last week. Fainganuku is also out of the squad. I guess same rotation thing with those kind of 4 outside backs. They seem to be shifting them around. The Blues also kind of minimal changes. A few changes to the bench and to the starting lineup. Finlay Christie gets a start. Sam Nock is nowhere to be seen in the 23. I'm not sure if it's his box kicking or if it's his hairdo. But either way, he's not in there. Interestingly, Jonathan Rue comes back. I don't know how to feel about that. But anyway, we've got Christie starting, so we'll see how he goes. Beauden Barrett still at fullback. Otiri Black still at 10. Plummer comes in at 12, so TJ Fa'ane is on the bench. That's a big call when you're looking to contain Goodhue and Eno, who are not small men. So yeah, Fa'ane's defense has been rock solid. So that's an interesting call from Leon McDonald. Blake Gibson is back in the 23. He's on the bench. He's been injured. Tui Nukuafe is back on the bench. He's coming back from a long layoff. So, yeah, it's still Hodgman, Parsons, and Tuangafasi. Tuipolotu will have a point to prove maybe that he's ahead of Sam Whitelock, because Sam Whitelock, I don't think, is at 100%. He's not seemed to be quite the Sam Whitelock of old since he's come back from Japan, but maybe he's just taking a bit while to get going, because you know the guy's class. But yeah, disappointing we don't get to see Dan Carter. He'll be the water boy, as a billboard down in Christchurch mentioned. But yeah, I should have mentioned Ethan Blackadder was injured in the last game, so he's not available for selection in this one either. So Sione Havili is on the bench. The last time the teams played, that was in 2020 season up here in Auckland, the Crusaders won it pretty easily. And the last time the Blues beat the Crusaders was 2014, early 2014, like February. And that was in Auckland. So it's been a long time between drinks, which is why I say I'm not holding my breath. But it's two unbeaten teams. It's sports. It's rugby. Anything could happen. Especially we've got our man Bodie at fullback. So I can start calling him our man until he heads off to Japan next year. The Blues are coming off the bye, so there's a potential for them to be a bit rusty, but there's also a potential for them to be a bit fresher. So it's kind of a balance, whereas the Crusaders had a pretty good win over the Highlanders last week. Pretty dominant second half, and then the final 5 minutes was just, maybe 7 minutes was just salt in the wound stuff. But that's what the Crusaders will do to you. If you let up, even for 5 minutes, they'll put 20 points on you. So yeah, TAB, which is the bookmakers here in New Zealand, have got the Crusaders by 8 points, and Rugby Forecast algorithm has the Crusaders by 11 points. So yeah, there you go. Game of the week. If you don't know how to watch it, stick around to the end of the video. ESPN Plus, $4.99 a month. You got to watch this one. If you're not going to watch any other game, this is probably the one to watch. It's going to have the biggest build-up. Second game, though, is the Tars against the Force. Like I mentioned, last team the Force played in Super Rugby before they got cut was the Tars over in Perth. This time they're in Sydney at the SCG. It's going to have limited crowd numbers. They're not selling tickets publicly. It was all done by a members ballot. So, yeah, Sydney Cricket Ground's a nice looking stadium when they play the games there. Or from memory, the turf tends to tear up a bit, whereas the Crusaders play at a not very nice place because it's their temporary stadium, but at least the turf is pretty good. But yeah, there should be a bit of feeling between these guys. I forgot to look up if any of these guys played in that 2017 game. I sure can't remember back to 2017 what their lineup would have been like. Was Godwin still with the Force then, or had he gone to Connacht? I don't know. Pick Cowan's not playing in this one because he's still in quarantine, which is pretty disappointing because I know he was pretty pumped to get in, but he will be there eventually. Anyway, so yeah, the Waratahs are coming off a loss. Disappointing loss against the Reds last week, but they played a really young side, and I think they probably gave a better account of themselves than they were expected to do. So there's that, and they've got Carmichael Hunt back on the bench this week, and he adds a bit of experience. Otherwise, the starting 15 is unchanged. So it's the same team. It's Maddox, who was probably the star of the show at fullback. Harrison was also really good. Mitch Short, Harry Johnson-Holmes, Robbie Abel. Angus Bell will have to lift his game at scrum time because he was certainly under the pump from Taniela Tupou last week. Rob Simmons is still captain. Michael Hooper's playing 7, so Nawani Dawase probably had a bit of a quiet one last week. He'll be looking to pick things up. Yeah, and like I mentioned, Carmichael Hunt's back on the bench, so one of the more experienced hands in the side, which has got a lot of guys either very, very light. Some of them had none last week on Super Rugby caps. For the Force, they haven't played yet. They've had that extra week's bye. Maybe that's been good to get some of the guys who've come back from abroad into the squad and into the swing of things, because you can't just walk onto the field. Maybe some players can, but most of them can't. There's a lot of guys who I don't think I've seen play. So I will require insights as to, I mean, some of you guys already gave me some tips on who to look out for, the likes of McGregor, who's at fullback, Jack McGregor, and Stunder, who is in the back row. People have told me to look out for these guys. I mean, I know John O'Lance, he's at 10. He is very much a comfortable pair of hands, very steady player. He's not going to be frazzled at all by the situation of being the first game back, a pretty emotional one. Marcel Braki is at 13. So he's, again, a bit of an old hand at the Force. Jeremy Thrush is in there in the locks. Kieran Longbottom's there. So there's definitely enough familiar names for me to be pretty comfortable with getting a feeling for the squad, but there's still a lot of guys that I don't think I've seen. So the lineup, just briefly, Wagner, Kaitu'u, and Longbottom is the front row. Thrush and Lee Warner in the second row. I don't know Lee Warner. Stowers, Ferris, and Stunder, the back row. Pryor, Lance, 9 and 10. Eust, I'm assuming. Braki, midfield. And Lacey, Ralston, and McGregor are the back three. Kyle Godwin's on the bench. Henry Tafu. There's still, again, Greg Holmes. A few familiar. Andrew Reedy. I'd forgotten he'd gone to the Force. He's kind of one of my most hated players from back when he was at the Reds. But I've mellowed on him, so I don't know. We'll see how we go. Definitely a point to prove for the Force, but there's still that big question mark about them. How are they going to fit back into Super Rugby level? Are they going to be a step behind? Or, will these guys really step up and make the mark on the game? They're picked to get the wooden spoon in the competition overall by quite some way. And the bookies have got the Tars by 11 for this one. So they're saying, yep, this Force squad is definitely going to be a bit underdone. And Rugby Forecast algorithm has the Waratahs by 3. But remember, that one goes back on games played data. So it's a bit of an old set of data for the Force just because, they haven't played in Super Rugby for a long time. I would imagine, unless he's been uploading the games in between Global Rapid Rugby's games, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's going to be a good one to watch, if not just to see the Force playing again. Got the magnet, it's looking glorious. So, should be a good Saturday of rugby. I should be doing a live stream for at least one of the games. Probably that one. I'm sure the old boy will be here as well. But, you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. How do you see those ones going? Are you pretty pumped for the Blues against the Crusaders? Can you see them getting the job done at Christchurch? It's a pretty hard place to go. And are you back in the Force to get that kind of fairy tale return to Super Rugby finish? Or do you think they're just going to be off the pace? You guys let me know your thoughts. If you haven't figured out how to watch the games, stick around. I'll show you how to get that done online. It's pretty straightforward. But, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later. Right, guys, if you want to watch the Blues take on the Crusaders down in Christchurch, or the first game for the Force back when they play the Tars, ESPN Plus is the cheapest way I've seen to get that done at $4.99 American for the month, which is all the Super Rugby, Aotearoa, and AU. However, if you're like me and you're not in America, you will get this page error message when you try to go to espn.com/ESPN Plus. I use ExpressVPN. It's one that I've used for years, literally, because I used to live in China where everything's blocked. So I know this one works, but it's not limited to ExpressVPN. Basically, get a VPN which can give you a server based in America. ExpressVPN's link is down in the description if you want to check that one out. It's also got a guide more than what I'm saying on how to access ESPN Plus using ExpressVPN. But essentially, if you sign up with them, they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can give it a try. Once you've got it installed, connect to a server in America. Like I've been using Hollywood recently, I guess, because, I don't know, that sounds like a fancy name. But really, it doesn't really matter if you're in Seattle or New Jersey or whichever place it is. See, once I'm on the VPN, it'll let me into ESPN Plus here. So I've already made an account with ESPN Plus. So I'm already signed in. If you weren't to have an account, you basically just click on one of these games. It doesn't really matter what sport, and it'll take you to a sign-up page, which is the standard. Enter your name, enter your email address. You might have to Google a US postcode. That's the only kind of problematic part. But yeah, sign up with that. $4.99, whiz bang, you are away. And you can watch the rugby. So as I record this, the Rebels and Reds is one of the upcoming events. If you just search rugby in the top right hand corner, it's got all the upcoming games on the first line, including Blues, Crusaders, and it's got all the on-demand games on the second line, so all the ones that have been played thus far. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, guys. I guess one little tip is if it's duplicated here, you can see two versions of it. You want the one with ESPN Plus in the top left, not the one which is ESPN 2. So that's the only maybe tricky part. But yeah, it works pretty well, guys. Games on demand, games live, $4.99 a month using a VPN. If you got other uses for a VPN, then that's all well and good. I know people do all kinds of stuff with them, but for mine, it's pretty much just watching rugby. So yeah, that's how you get it done, guys. Remember, links in the description, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.